And oh, wow. Okay, are we all set? I think we are. All right, yeah, I think we're going. Woo! So, hello, hello. This is the VR Community Builder Meetup. And let's see, we're at about 6:03. I'm Heyu. Hello. And the question is, who are all these bunny rabbits? And what are we doing here?
Are you talking to the rabbits?
I am. This is the new community, BridgeMakers. So.
All right. Y'all should come, and I am also leaving. Bye-bye.
You are? Oh.
All right. Sorry, I was still in the Discord call that I almost lost track of time. It was 8:59 as I was running my mouth, just talking about stuff with people,
nice.
and was like, "Oh shit, I have somewhere to be."
Nice. No worries. Well, we are live streaming, and
nice.
Yeah, I just realized,
Hello.
The bunnies are here to talk about community.
Yeah.
Digital community bunnies.
They were all gathered around you when I first came in. Now
I know, they dissipated. Yeah, that was really interesting. Maybe they're shy.
I was pushing for, there was multiple staff people in that VC I was just in on ancient, nice. So I was like, the one person, when I said, we go to World Hop and talk about how they're good for, bad for communities, and I was like, oh, you should take them to this place that's, ha ha ha, and I was like, you come and take us.
Yeah, come show us.
Bring it.
Exactly.
Stop trying to give me the link.
I know.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was really
feeling excited.
Guilt.
I know, the bait. Yes, the guilt bait.
Tried to be like, oh, well, I'm not even on the Discord. And I'm like, well, the link's sitting right there in helper announcements. Like, just go click it, and then you are in the Discord. It's easy.
All the energy barriers that come up. Yeah. Yeah, well, we can
I see that with Sesh a lot, though. People are like, oh, it's so complicated. I'm like, I just want to be like, it's not, though.
Yeah.
It's actually quite simple.
I know. We're going to regress a little bit here, and we're re-adding the Discord event piece because it's been such a struggle.
It, like mirroring them with Sesh or just going back to them? Okay. Which
leads to all kinds of confusion because people RSVP in both places, and it looks like nobody's going even though they are. And but we're kind of at wit's end here, so we're going to be doing that. But why don't we just, if you want, you can add bunnies. I have a lot of bunnies here. I probably clicked that button.
You're gonna add.
Yeah, so there's a box over here. People can follow us. And if you click on the box, bunnies pop out over in the distance. So,
okay.
But it's local, so I'm clicking on the box and all these bunnies are piling out. I don't know what the limit is, but it's pretty fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, when I came in, I only saw really a few bunnies. But
right.
Because I was freshly spawned, you were right where they spawn, and they were gathered around you.
Exactly.
Then, okay.
So
that's enough bunnies for me. I've got.
Oh, you can see all the ones that I just cloned in. Nice.
I clicked it a bunch myself.
Okay.
Like I got the idea pretty quickly. And
I probably have several hundred bunnies at this point. So.
Yeah, I think that's too many.
That's too many. Yeah, too fast of a flow. I think there's...
Have you ever heard of Mitch Hedberg?
No.
Great one-liner comic. Died way too young, but one of my favorites was rice is great for when you want to eat 2,000 of something.
Oh.
And, I think that highlights why I don't like rice, because it's too much.
Yeah.
As is. Also, you have too many bunnies.
Rabbit rice grains. Yeah. There's something about the activity of the bunny rabbits when we're having this community pain of low attendance that is kind of like soothing for me. But it's an artificial soothing, so we'll see.
Right.
I turned the music off, but the music fit really well with all the breeding bunnies.
Right.
Gave that sense of circus.
Honestly, right, like I was kind of vibing.
Yeah, you're feeling it, right? Yeah, exactly.
Like it's kind of music I often will put on with just the intent that somebody's going to be like, what the fuck is up with this music? Oh, Carl put this on, didn't he? Okay.
Hey, Mary. That's awesome. Welcome.
Hi.
Yes, this is our intro world.
All right. So go. You have to
Can't see all the bunnies. That's right.
My experience. You need to go click that right square 20 times to simulate Haya's. You need to click it like 200 times.
100. Yeah. Wow. Manic dancing to music. I gotta turn the music back up so people understand why Mary is going like
this. Especially if I don't move so that it stays consistent. If anyone joins, this is a great place for me to throw up the carnival behind me.
Nice. Could be. Yeah, then it goes with the music. Oh my.
Okay, Haya is currently drowning in bunnies.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. Bunny fluff all the way.
I always panic for a minute when I haven't used an avatar in a while, and I'm like, is it one of the ones that went not available and I unfavorited?
Yeah. I don't see anything.
Here it is.
Yeah. So we are
the right avatar.
Live streaming, just so you know, Mary.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll see if we get one more person. Oh, no, it's 6:10. So my thing is for protecting my own boundaries and whatever is I'll hold a container for the first 10 minutes, but if 3 people don't show up, then that container is now on the table to be chopped, ended early, or deeply modified, because holding a container, especially for the process that we normally do, which is a grief process of sorts, it's a facing hard shit together. When there's not 3 people, that's a different kind of emotional labor for facilitation. Yeah. And so, so we're not going to...
Similarly to, if you think back to when it was, I think, just me, you, and Lily for one of these, it was a bit like, it was a different thing, you know?
Right, yeah.
When I was standing in.
Yeah. So we can either try to get into some good trouble together that may or may not be BridgeMakers trouble, or we can call it here and wish each other good on a different kind of night. What is true to do?
Yeah. I was going to propose maybe not, you didn't really have anything specific in mind, but the other sort of trouble when it was just me, you sitting here. Hey, it's like we could go and try and invade some other communities, like a documentary crew,
just crush some parties
on the savannah.
I think you and I are pretty powerful
amplifiers,
analyzers, amplifiers.
So is Mary. Mary's definitely a good analyst.
Infiltrators.
That's right.
Yeah.
We could recruit them to come to the hop world, the real organic hop world.
Speaking of trouble and or paper cuts, I did not realize that I didn't even RSVP to this one, so I got no notification.
Yeah.
And
That's why you got to use the recurring attendance feature.
Yeah.
This is such a good example of like death by sesh. That needs to be part of our store. A death by sesh. Like it's the best version of an event system that still has so much trouble that it's so difficult even for anyone, even on a staff level, to kind of maintain. So yeah, death by sesh. It's the keyword for today.
I love sesh, and I'll defend it till my dying breath.
I find it
I've been paying them people $5 for years.
I find it much better than what Discord has to offer, but it still misses the mark enough to make it user friendly enough for people as clever as Mary and our core advisors to use and actually work. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm curious if how many events do you guys have in Ancients a week?
I mean,
like ballpark figure.
20.
Wow.
Yeah, they're a big group.
No, with watch parties, it's probably more like 30.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that for a gaming chillax one-time event crowd, it's good, but for purposeful, meaningful kind of workshop-y vibe, it's not so good.
Yeah, digging into it with folks that have highlighted their pain points of it have kind of made it more clear to me how it's about like a level of like commitment that they feel is being made, and like be in a way that's like showing like a respect for like BridgeMakers, as like seeing it as this like important thing that commitments need to be kept, and so
it's almost like they're signing up for a mortgage or something, is the vibe I get from people. They're just like, I am going to have monthly payments of attendance for a long time. And it's like, no,
like, I don't know. I might
saying you're planning to go.
Might come up. I might have to.
I know. I might have other things that are
heart surgery suddenly.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. And I get that feeling too, even though I set the event up. Yeah, no, it's trippy. So it's like, it's a funny thing to look at how funnels make us feel at ease and welcome versus like, oh, I did the iTunes where I scrolled through the 1,000 pages. It feels like that. I'm consenting to things I don't even understand. It's a weird loop.
We get that with Ancients too, though. There's like, we've had some people that just come in and they're terrified to open a ticket. They even to the degree of like putting an RSVP on a thing, they're worried about taking up a slot for somebody else, and like they don't want to, if they're not going to be there for sure.
Yeah.
It says there's only going to be 80 people allowed, so they don't want to take up a slot. And it's like,
nice.
No, just click the button.
Yeah. Well, why don't we? Oh, go ahead.
And as a kind of passing remark, game design theory, one way to get around that kind of coyness, I guess, is to actually make it part of the introduction feature, so that you, as part of introduction, you tell them to click the support ticket and then walk them through the process that way, and then they've done it once, so now they're a bit more comfortable with it.
That actually does kind of give me an idea, Heya, that perhaps there is room for a like tutorial / kind of playful gamey role, like a thing that like, oh, in order to test out the system and to get access to this secret Neopets channel, you gotta like do this, and that'll kind of walk people through the process of how the Discord works.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a lot of like random counting channels or just kind of fun, stupid things people do on Discord with channels that you could lock behind the structure of BridgeMakers, but in a very lubricated way, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of how we do the like newbie events and the newbie channel, and then like I at newbie events often encourage people to like open tickets for dumb reasons, to like show me pictures of ducks or whatever, to like kind of disarm the process, and just like, yeah, click the button.
Nice.
Right out.
Let's do it. Let's gamify. Go for it. Yay.
We could actually.
You gotta take that though. I haven't clicked the button again myself. I'm just a attendee of this event.
Nice.
I have no building powers.
What were you gonna say, Mary?
I'm walking on the bridge right now.
We could lock the helpers roles and become a helper channel behind some basic tutorial.
Yeah.
That way, there's at least a base level of commitment.
At least helpers know that they need to. Yeah, the requirements of sorts.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what community should we go scout and infiltrate for maybe like a 5-minute window, and then we'll meet back and say, here's what I observed. Drop in and drop out.
I don't know, most of what you see on Hot these days is just like club bar things.
Yeah. There's some different groups that look like they have activities right now. Like TransAcademy has a group public instance open. VR Yoga has 12 people in it. TransAcademy has 34 people in it. That's definitely more probably a wander around and chat with people. Ancients has 4 different event spaces open. Corbell's Music Festivals has...
Have we ever gone to any of the Club Ancients Worlds?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think we did a tour one of these nights.
On the ground,
yeah. And then we have the Mindfulness VR that has 5 people in it. We have the Life Drawing group.
Familiar folks there.
Yeah,
looks like cool too.
So those are all community. Cadets Metaverse is in an Uno's game world. There are 3 people in that one.
Yeah, great groups. I need to get in some of these groups.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good ones.
Let's go to mindfulness just so I can just request on that one, can't I? Probably.
I'm a little worried with the mindfulness one that's going to be some kind of meditation.
Okay.
It might not be. They're in a world called Timeless Respite. Let me look at what that world is doing. Cozy campfire, floating islands in the magical depths of space. Groups. Yeah, I have a lot of groups. Do you have a vote, Mary?
Nope. Most of that will probably be a new experience for me. I don't attend many group events.
Ah. Do you have a preference that we do something other than this? What do you feel curious about?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. Well, so which one did you say you wanted, Carl? The mindfulness?
Well, I mean, I said so that I can join, but I've already requested to join the group and just joined their Discord, so I mean, I kind of got that covered.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Why don't we do the TransAcademy? I think is going to be the most chat, say hello to people, and then break away without it being too disruptive. You know, the other ones have much smaller spaces.
Right. Even just a few of us would be kind of a
Yeah, it would be disruptive
invasion.
to be there and then disruptive to leave. So, let me.
With more of a dozen folks or so, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's the space. Can you all see that door?
Yep.
Nice.
Okay, so let's plan to like be in there for maybe 5 minutes and then we'll go somewhere else and chat about what we learned.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Sounds good.
What am I touching? Oh, it's my bag. I'm crazy.
What other DPS doesn't use guns?
You got a pirate ship?
Well, Venture technically doesn't.
Does not use a gun. It's her hand. It's her. She's using her hand. She's going pew, 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 with her freaking hand. What do you mean?
Well, technically it's with her. Technically it's with her pointer, middle, and
Here
thumb
we are.
that shoot at the bullets.
Who is messaging
Cole
me on
seems to have headed out this way.
Oh, did he already run in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. Carl's like, join a group.
Mm-hmm.
Super quick.
Hey, yes.
The slippery ice. I
He's
don't like
sliding.
slippery ice, bro. It's too slippery.
That's
Figured y'all were the only ones
interesting.
sliding on the ice, so I'd stop here while slipping around.
We were talking about groceries. Oh, we were talking about what I wanted for my birthday, bro. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
This is true.
I've given up on like getting stuff for my birthday because I pretty much just get myself things I want and nobody does anything.
No, I understand that. This is new for her too. This is new for her too.
Yeah, but we're doing things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, well, I agreed. You're not making me technically because I agreed to
in a
it.
nice way. In a nice way. No.
Yeah.
Encouraging.
Enjoy your birthday.
Yes. Yes. Enjoy your birthday. You have no choice.
Some of us need that, you know, need that
Yeah.
encouragement
No, I
to
just
be allowed.
convinced her that she deserved it.
Well, the thing is, I probably would anyway, but then I'd be like really sad about it, and I'd feel bad. My birthday is in 2 days, bro. It's on February 9th. I'm turning 20 years old. That's 2 even decades, bruv.
My Steam account's older than you.
Damn. How old are you?
We're old. I'm the oldest. So we're old. Yeah.
You're the oldest.
How much?
I'm the young one here, I think. Actually, no, I think Mary's.
If you don't mind me asking.
I'm 44.
Okay. I'm 31.
I'll
You're
turn
all
40
good.
this year.
I'm not too far off.
I win.
Yeah, you're.
I'm making it out of here first.
How old are you?
Once you're in the 30s, I'm 39 now. I'll be 40 this year.
39 now? Okay.
Hello,
Nothing wrong
Cooper.
with that.
Jeez. You're just like me,
Okay.
bro.
Built a
Lovely.
super simple
Okay.
wheelchair there.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Wheelchair?
Thanks.
Oh, I gotta enable the avatar.
Is it in the
Oh,
world
wow.
itself, or is this part of your avatar?
I'm in a wheelchair at the moment. I got it to actually track the angle of it relatively.
Oh my
accurately.
god.
Oh,
So we're
wait,
trying
seriously?
through wheelchair
This is
IRL.
your actual
Oh
wheelchair?
my god.
That is
Yeah,
really
amazing.
cool.
Built it based on the measurement. I just sat down on the floor and just
Wow.
measured all different distances between everything on the
Yeah, yeah,
wheelchair.
yeah.
Oh, and it
Scribbled
shows
all
us a
out.
wheel too. Look. Oh my
Those
god.
are the wheels.
That's amazing.
Oh my
I
god.
did this in Horizon
yes.
Worlds for somebody who
Oh.
in Horizon you couldn't sit down for a long time and they felt really uncomfortable walking around. they said it made them feel a lot of terror because they literally couldn't walk. And so they sent us pictures of their wheelchair, and we built it with them there, and gave it all the details, and then built a program so they could have it in our worlds. Yeah.
But wouldn't it be, for people in wheelchair, wouldn't it be better to visually see yourself with your legs again?
Not necessarily.
Depends.
It really, it's whatever
like
they
for
need.
me.
Yeah.
For me, like I got the wheelchair, and so I was in. Let me turn it off. So I was in VR chat like this, and I was like, I usually have a personal mirror up, and it was like,
full body,
this doesn't feel like me. This, and then got the wheelchair. I was like, yeah, now this is me.
That's amazing. I'm so impressed. Is it alright if I send you a friend
probably
in
times when you want
there?
to represent something else, you embody something else.
Thanks.
Oh my god, bro.
That was lovely.
Yeah, he can grab it.
You can move
Yeah,
it.
it's got some funky stuff going on with Fizzbones that like it tracks my head, but it still is like very drifty. So like it.
That is so cool though.
Basically, it's got like 2 segments. The first segment is like it's inside of my head up to like around here, which is
I can almost picture it.
It's this
Probably
height, and it's very stiff.
If you
like
turn on the whatever.
It pulls back really stiffly, and then it has a second segment that's able to like compress and shrink, like with 0 resistance.
Yeah.
And so it stays in place, and then the halo itself has a constraint on it that points it towards my head. So that allows it to like track.
Sorry, I just kind of came in the conversation. What's up? Fuck, I'm coming. Wait.
That's what it's about, bro.
What's up? What's up? I autismed out about your wheelchair to him, and I said it's really cool. And I repeated like 3 words. The hip and when back wheels are back and like it's so cool. I was laying in bed last night and I was like, I wonder, that's so cool. I wonder what the whole process is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So like it's positioned based on my hips largely, and then it has some constraints that measure the angle of my back in the avatar, and use that to rotate it.
Look,
and then it has some other constraints to shift it forward so that it doesn't like rotate away from me, because it rotates around the back of around the center of the wheels, which would mean like as it rotates it would fall back away from me, so it shifts it forward back underneath me.
But isn't that so cool?
Yeah.
Like, look, it freaking moves! It fucking moves! Look at that shit!
And then there's a trigger like positioned like a meter away, and a contact that when it gets to a certain angle, it turns off the tracking and snaps it to like the 4 degrees, I believe it is. And then there's a contact that allows me to toggle it on and off. So like if I'm sitting like this in the wheelchair, it will show up as like tilted back. I can do that and lock it.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
That's really cool. See, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love that.
It fucking, look at that shit. Are you seeing
I hear you. And Carl and Mary are part of a group that I run called BridgeMakers. And we are all about innovating and building bridges for communities and leaders, and this kind of perspective that you held of being able to represent your physical space and body the way it is. That's totally in the spirit of what we're trying to do.
Something that a friend actually recommended. So the halo it started out as just an aesthetic thing, but we recently discovered that we have DID, and so for people to like know who's fronting. Like if we have the red halo
what
out,
the halo means. I was
if
so
we have
confused.
if we have the red halo out, then somebody can walk up and go, "Oh, I'm talking to Ruby."
Yeah.
Ruby is in front.
Whoa.
Or the white halo, like a friend can walk up and they know that it's Kate.
Right.
Or the green halo is Jaden.
That's lovely.
That's so cool.
So you're bridging both your physical reality and your inside realities at the same time.
Yeah, I've found this group that I love the banner. This idiot is several idiots.
Oh, how clever!
But yeah,
wonderful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all of your bridging with yourself.
Yeah, it's nice. I enjoy, like, I have a whole. So I'm a software developer, and so for my like for my avatar stuff, I have a whole fucking workflow set up. Like I made a custom Blender plugin for exporting models, and like all sorts of shit that is
it's so bad.
much more involved than most people's, but it allows me to like just make a change in my model, click a button, and it merges together all the different pieces of the model, exports it as a file, and then in Unity that'll update, and then everything just works.
Well, I mean, like Haya was saying, the BridgeMakers community is not just about like, you know, outreach and talking to folks and stuff, but being able to provide tools like that could help other folks in their creation pipeline would be amazing if you joined up and checked it out. And we're in pretty good need of folks of all sorts of skill types and stuff, and you sound pretty knowledgeable in the avatar department. I've been on here 4 years and haven't uploaded anything.
Yeah.
Nico over here
the time
is a brilliant world creator. You've probably been to some of his worlds. He has built the spaceship world. What is that called? Space Odyssey?
There's a lot of Nikos here.
Right. Oh yeah, we got Nick Bosma as well, so.
I'm Nico,
So many Nikos.
Yeah, maybe you know some words. Yeah.
We haven't seen you in a while, Nico. How are you doing?
Oh, busy, but I'm okay.
Yay. He embodied, like, his worlds have these incredible shaders that are quest friendly and just give you that sense of what the future of VR is going to be like. And then his avatar is alien, and I think it's just like brand is on point. You embody the whole theme. When I see an alien, I'm like, that must be Nico.
Yeah, make aliens great again. Look, make aliens great again.
That's so great. Oh, Space Planets 2025. That's awesome.
We gotta resurrect Roddenberry.
Mm.
Gotta have a positive outlook. I'm down for it.
Yeah, so Nico, we were just talking with Code. Code is a very clever creator. This is actually Code's wheelchair. And they've got the full body tracking
with the
on.
angle of my actual wheelchair. And like,
oh, good job.
I can move around because like it's honestly easier to move around like this, both because like lower rolling resistance, and so the current theory for what's going on, I haven't gone to a doctor to get a formal diagnosis, but the possibility was mentioned by a doctor when I was younger, but we're thinking is probably muscular dystrophy in my legs and lower body. And so holding my torso upright takes not insignificant amount of effort. And so by doing it like this, I don't have to do that. I just kind of like sit and I don't have to keep my body upright. And like holding myself forward is fine.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
And my arms are plenty strong, so.
But this also allows you to have that spinal flex so that it's not just sitting in one situation and then getting that atrophy piece. You're actually still getting to work your body out a little bit. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're in the process of getting me to a doctor to take a look and figure out what's going on, but that's been a process, and there's been a lot going on in my life outside of that has complicated the timeline. Like, yeah.
But, yeah, healthcare in general is a huge minefield, so I don't envy that at all, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I appreciate is you built this, and it's not a fully graphically perfect wheelchair. You know, it works. It tells
that's
the story.
Mostly laziness
and
lack of artistic talent.
I think it feels like those like avatars where it's like people's controllers just floating. Controllers and a headset floating in space, like it's representing like a real life.
Yeah, it's
like
telling a story.
The lack of like connecting pipes and whatever is an artistic choice. The flat white texture is just lack of artistic talent and laziness.
I hear you. One of the values, that we hold is iteration, and I think that you being able to like embody that and not wait until it's perfect to make it comfortable enough to embody it. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
And just like people are always surprised that it goes away. It's like it's literally just a trigger that detects when the torso is near the seat.
Wow.
I think it kind of fit the style of the world. I asked, is that something that was here?
Right.
I could see that being plausible,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which was so exciting to me because we have, in this previous community I grew, we had a world that had this wheelchair in there for whenever this person came in. And it took up like 30% of the memory of the world, but it was still for the embodiment of that, like, we're going to make space. It was worth it. Still there.
Yeah.
I'm like slowly moving. What the fuck?
I know. I'm having so much. It feels like controller drift. It's so annoying.
If you go backwards, you can do fine adjustments without sliding.
Oh.
Backwards stops the sliding.
However, this is a weird quirk to this. So I'm streaming right now, and if I try to move the camera to get a better angle, even though I'm static, it moves me with the camera. And so then I'm flying across and trying to reset. It's been such a stressful streaming moment. Yeah, we're doing a little tour of communities and just like visiting communities that have any active worlds and just saying hello to people, and totally spontaneous, streaming it to our Discord.
Well, howdy.
Hello. TransAcademy has been a very special place to me for a long time, so I loved that we could come here. It's just such an embodiment of a living, evolving community.
Yeah.
Have you been here, Nico, Mary, Carl?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know TransAcademy.
I have never been to this world.
Oh, yeah.
No, this is new to me.
When I came here the first time, I was like, it kind of reminded me of why I work in XR and why I believe in it so much, because it felt like the haven or the little heaven space of centering trans instead of like tolerating, and could be such a incredible like life bridge for so many people. I was like, and it's a super well trafficked, like very supported community, not just by the greater community of VR chat, but actually by VR chat itself. And that just was so many levels of joy for me. I was like, oh, okay. I wanted to run and tell everybody I knew about it, but then I also felt very protective of it. Like, oh no, I don't want to give it too much visibility and then get it targeted. So
yeah. The
Okay.
ability, like in VR, to choose how you present yourself is such a big thing for trans people.
Yeah.
Like being able to just put on like a femme avatar is like suddenly like, this is me. This feels like me. And even like now I'm at HRT and like, but I pass better, but like having before that, like having a context where like I can present as me, that was huge.
Yeah. And then look at what it's also maybe empowered or allowed you to do. Is like, what else am I now that this part feels secure and welcomed? Like, what else embodies me and lets me be me here and tell my story and my truth? That's just lovely.
Yeah.
And I've actually your Halo piece that you're doing there. I've thought about this because dissociative identity disorder seems to be quite common in VR chat as a identity. And I've just thought about like, wow, we all can switch our avatars at any given moment, but then that can almost create this like quiet noise of not really understanding, is this role play? Like what's happening? And so I've thought about how do we empower people with this DID to have the same account, but also be able to like ethically kind of communicate of something significant shifted in me, and I'm not going to remember what I just said or whatever. So I think you're beginning to prototype that, and that's also brilliant.
And a big part of it is that like I have a ton of friends, and like they can walk up to us and know who are they talking to.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I would have to we would have to tell them every time they came up like who was fronting. They would have to ask, who is this? But with like a simple little visual cue, you can tell like, oh, I'm talking to Ruby, I'm talking to Jaden. With Jaden it's a bit more obvious because they talk with a mask voice. But Ruby and I are very similar in our voice and affect. So it's been very, and like people can see like in the middle of a conversation before we even say anything, oh, there's a switch.
Yeah. Because in physical reality, when somebody switches, it can be very apparent. But in virtual reality, a lot of those nonverbal cues are not there. The micro expressions, the different posture, the different like proximity, like isn't necessarily reflected.
And for some, like for us and Jaden, like for Ruby and I and Jaden, very different in terms of presentation. Not immediately obvious, like you have to know what to look for to tell. But Ruby and I are very much different sides of the same person in a way that like Jaden and Fourth Part are not. Like to the point where it's often unclear even to ourselves who is fronting. And so honestly, I wish I could have like this kind of Halo system in person everywhere, because it would make it so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. But there, even if we look at it like gradients instead of black or white, there's a whole concept in psychology called internal family systems theory. And it's this idea that we all have these different parts inside of us that exist no matter what. And we do switch between them at times, especially when we're under stress or trauma. And the practice as a tool, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but as a tool, the practice of being able to recognize when I'm switching hats, when a different part of me is kicking in to solve what's happening or protect what inside of me would be very hurt by what's happening. That's such an important skill for everybody to learn, right? Of like, how do I keep informing and updating people when I'm feeling a shift and noticing that. So you're definitely growing some tools here that I think extend potentially beyond the origin of why it inspired you to make them. And I'm just very impressed to see it all in one person. You're just like, you're solving all the problems. Well done. Yay. It's an honor to meet you.
Anyway.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
But oh dear. Yeah, oh dear indeed. Whoa.
Do you have any other communities you would suggest that maybe have events going on right now that we go check out?
Okay, good.
No, I mostly hang out around here. It's either around here or I'll hang out with my girlfriend, one of my girlfriends.
One of your girlfriends? Wow.
Like in a private instance.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Polyamory just makes sense to like the idea of only being able to have one partner. Just no.
Damn.
So.
What a life.
Yeah.
But,
okay. What type
one
of
the things, one of the things that I do hear a lot is in some ways, have become a fixture of like, oh, there's Kate. She's talking about her DID again because people don't understand it. Like it's not media representation is terrible.
That's
like
true.
It's almost always the villain has DID and there's the good half and then there's the bad half. And like Jekyll and Hyde kind of things.
Exactly.
But it's much more complicated than that and not it's not someone with a good side and an evil side. It's someone who has gone through things that have broken them in a very deep way and are generally struggling to cope. And it's not, and so telling people about it and educating people about it is something that I really enjoy. And people consistently enjoy hearing about it. It's a really interesting problem and it's an interesting condition that people just don't talk about. I've lost track of the number of people where I'm talking about it and somebody else will chime in about their own experience because people don't openly talk about these disorders, partially because they are so stigmatized. And so part of what I like doing is taking these things, like I will gladly tell anyone about my past history, my struggles with bipolar disorder, my struggles with now DID. Like I will gladly tell anyone about these things because I want to make them normal. Like it's normal to struggle with life and it's normal to have problems and your problems aren't too big to talk about. Like I talk about the big problems because so often and in my history, in my life, I've always felt like my problems were too big. Like nobody would be interested in hearing about them.
Yeah.
And so I want to show that it's okay to talk about the big things and kind of like beyond bridging like representation, like making people comfortable to talk about hard things is an explicit goal of mine.
Yeah. Really well put. The making it normal to be human, whatever that means. Yeah. Well, thank you for such a beautiful example of embodying that head to toe, inside and out, all the above. Yeah. Very fun to come in and meet you. Okay. Well, should we keep going? We're kind of doing a community tour.
Like,
yeah, I
had actually had something too I wanted to ask you about. Hey, so
oh, sure.
Go back somewhere.
Okay. Yeah.
More group focused here.
Okay.
But it was great meeting everybody here. Sorry I dropped out. I got that dreaded my system froze, and then I just had Code Warrior on loop talking like the same sentence.
Oh, nice.
Trying to get my shit under control.
Was it a good sentence at least?
It's already gone out of my mind, but it was a little bit just word salad because it was like one sentence, then it would jump to a different part of the next sentence, and then loop back to the previous one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, been there. Okay. Well, let's see here. Just grabbing a world. And anyone else who wants to join, you're welcome to come with us. We're just gonna we're kind of learning about community systems and how to bridge better. Okay, here's a good one. We do group plus.
Yeah, it's usually at this time of night. It's our community roundtable thing. Since we didn't have many folks, we went on a little field trip.
Exactly. We're on a field trip. Okay, here we go. Group plus. Anybody who'd like to join, you're welcome. We're just going to talk about communities. Yay. You taking off, Nico?
Yeah, it's too late.
Okay. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Whoa. Can I get in? All right. That ice was pretty brutal.
Okay.
All right. And we're back.
See how boring we sound if nobody comes.
What'd you say?
We'll see if we just sounded boring and nobody comes through the open invitation portal.
Yeah, I didn't think anybody would come. I think that's a very secure community space. People literally spend every day many, many hours in there. And we're a little too stranger danger for that to be a real thing.
I wondered about bringing this up before, and then kind of went off my mind when I got here until the movement happened specifically on our server. That kind of similar to the when we it actually reminded me of it when the code we were just talking to brought up their DID identity, and that previous thing when I brought that up because there was a person who we were dealing with in our community. Dealing with sounds so negative already, but we've
learning
got
how to accommodate.
Issue with someone who's been giving folks worrying vibes of paranoid delusions and such, which has come to a point where we feel the need to address it, but I'm a little worried about the message. I just sent a response to the message that was drafted because I worry that we're getting a little too close to playing into confirming somewhat the delusion of people seeing them as people of authority conspiring, and talking about them behind their back kind of stuff.
Yeah, if there's a sense that there's a group looking over my back and going to push me out, then when a group is looking over my back and considering how to set bridges and boundaries, that's going to come across, and then that's going to feel really
I acknowledge that, and my response was I know we need to set these boundaries, but I'm not really sure how to do so without furthering this person's worrisome behavior.
Yeah, the way that I have in general suggested that this part be handled is naming the data that's concerning community leader or leaders. So just putting it kind of explicit of like, there are reports of blah, 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 and XYZ, just neutrally like, these are the patterns. And then here is how this may be impacting this community. And then finally, here are some proposals like ABC on how we can address this. And then
that's pretty close to what we have.
Good.
Because to be a little more specific, the general worrisome comments have been like along the lines of like famous people are stalking them. And so it's my worry was a little bit that specifically repeating that back of saying like, oh, you know, we've heard tell of you saying this, you know, would come across as like reinforcing that idea to them rather than just potentially saying, you know, well, even then, like being vague about it also feels like it's so
right.
touchy.
It's an insinuating fill in the blank, and then that can actually amplify the concern further. Yeah. So that's something I don't think I've written on very clearly yet, but you know, if you think about paranoia, it's where I'm concerned about there's something bigger than me plotting against me from the outside. But then when you add delusions into it,
we've been talking about that with like folks see our groups as these big authoritative entities when they're just some folks that are hopefully just trying to foster a community.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal.
Well, we bring our community wounds from other community systems, right? And then the way that we express those wounds, because we didn't ever like, most of the time, people don't sit there and say, "Dear diary, these are my community wounds. This is the day that happened. This is the day that it ended. And maybe someday I'll understand this better." It's very unconsciously encoded in our systems. And so then when we go into another system, we reenact the end scene of that wound and see if this system is going to do it differently. But I think you brought up a great point when we were thinking about paper cuts and user journey to give back feedback is that finally when somebody has built up enough pressure inside to say, ugh, this doesn't work for me, it's not about the one little paper cut at that point. It's about all the paper cuts before. And it's giving that impetus, but then we're like, why are you freaking out about the one little thing? Like that's the wrong amount of volume for the one little thing. So now it can be really easy as a leader to other them and be like, whoa, you're bringing too much drama. What else are you going to say? Instead of really recognizing like, we have to get through a lot of boundaries inside of us to say, ugh, I don't like this. And sometimes it comes out as vomit, as projectile. But in the case of delusions, like that is where now I'm connecting dots and making up things that are highly unlikely, but because it's cycled in my awareness for so long, it feels more real than the other reality that people agree on.
Yeah.
And especially in virtual spaces where there's a lot that this environment is telling me this is like a real world. And so my brain is reading this environment and saying, oh, this is a safe, peaceful, artistic space here. But there could be cues, like if you look at the movement of the trees over there, that's an equation to make it appear at least consciously random how those leaves are blowing. But it also, to save data and save room, it might not feel like the actual randomness of wind blowing through the trees. And so that could be actually
being able to recognize that line as not natural to us. That is a learned skill for sure.
And so in my physiology now, I'm actually starting to have this fear response. Like that tree is looking at me, or that tree is waving at me, or whatever. And if you add substances, if you add isolation, if you add life factors,
to swerve it to something that is like more discussable because it isn't some that I know it's highly unlikely, but I don't want to discuss this person's specifics and the chance that that potentially it could get around to them that they're being talked about, because that would be counterproductive. But it does give me a lot of I constantly am recalling Christian Weston Chandler. Do you know that individual?
No.
I am amazed that you don't. That is a rabbit hole for you to go down on your own. High level, though, I will just say it is a person that has been harassed and bullied, but like consistently lived their life on the internet and has kind of gone through every sort of trauma that you could imagine that could come from that. They recently got out of prison. Yeah, no. They created an online character called Sonichu. I think I might have alluded this to you before and you didn't know what I was talking about when I pulled out a Sonichu avatar. But they're a lot of the stuff there, because what made me think of it again here is the idea that you don't know also that perhaps somebody's impersonating famous people and actually harassing a person to further their delusions intentionally, like as much as you might just put that on the person, like there is an environment online where that is fueled for fun of others. There's a term lolcows even that I hate, where it's just like an individual that is famous, quote unquote, online, but most of their following comes from people who harass and bully them, and
I see.
It's pretty messed up, and I kind of was, when I first brought it up here, hoping you knew more about it and that we could kind of discuss these things in the framework of Chris Chan. But it's long story short, just to say that that's kind of an example of maybe something starting out, in the small ways of the person that I'm talking about, but can be can go to some very horrible places, let's just say, because Christine Weston Chandler in recent days has gotten out of prison for assault on an elderly person who was their mother, and it was sexual assault, to be specific. So there was a lot of bad outcomes, and it's ongoing. There's a 88-part documentary that is 40 minutes each part, going into the history. There's a compilation playlist of all videos from and about Chris Chan it's 9,000 something videos. So it is a huge rabbit hole, but it's scary, and this is definitely as far as an internet person, the closest I've been to having to directly try to have any effect on a person, and I really am at a loss. Let's see, somebody actually responded to my message, so.
Yeah, so I don't know if I got to where I was trying to go with that, but basically when you get to delusions, there's a really good documentary on Netflix about understanding delusions and paranoia. The concept that they really use as a metaphor is that we all have these, it's like there's a garden inside of us all of thoughts. And many times delusions are born out of just mismatching data points. And it's like a hypothesis, and it's not a good hypothesis, but it's the best one we could come up with in that moment. And if you pour fear and isolation and substance use and whatever else onto it, it grows it like a tree. And then it becomes its own reinforcing thought because it wasn't based on enough reality checks to keep it in check and diversify it and test it. Most of us are continually having these little budding thoughts happen, and we kind of weed them out, or we just don't feed them and they fade off. But for people who get really stuck in these ideas, what you can think about is it's just really telling you that their environment does not have a feedback loop for them, and and a bigger habit has formed that now this expression of emotional stress has a place to go and can start to form an entire belief system around this thing that there isn't really good evidence for, but it feels so true. Now I have to pile on all kinds of additional data to back it up. So, yeah.
The mind's how you perceive what is rational changes depending on
how stressed and how much do I have people in my life when I am second guessed and challenged and misunderstood and ghosted or shadow banned or whatever. How many reflections do I have in my life of people who remember who I am and don't take the fear responses in me as evidence of who I am and actually reflect me back to me in the best version of me so that I can kind of reset and be like, oh, yeah, it's like I was, when you've had a really bad nightmare or something and you get up in the morning and you're a little flinchy and looking around the corners and whatever, like that can be the experience that needs the massage of a community and a village to just be like, oh yeah, I have those moments. And this isn't to minimize, severe diagnosed mental illness, but if we look at it like a gradient, it can help us form an actual like gradient of solutions to test, to reality test with each other, and kind of gently remind each other when it's going off into the deep end. Like I used to live in New York City, and this was right after 9/11, and there were still people on the streets standing at the corners of a lot of buildings that were called 9/11 truthers, and they would hand out these flyers. And I ignored it for many months, and then I had a lot of stressors happen to me within just like about a month. And somebody shoved one of these flyers in my hands and were like, oh, look up this website. And so I got home and I was avoiding doing my grad work at that point. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just look it up. And it took me down this massive rabbit hole of like the conspiracy theory of what happened there. And it really spun me because I was in the city. Well, I'm, seeing all these people everywhere. And it just felt like, oh my God, just the horror of what really could have happened here that has just gotten covered up. And then I talked to my sister. I think she was in Vienna at that point, and she's listening to me just spew all of this like, oh, and guess what? And the zeitgeist and the government, and maybe this is all true. And she just said, wow, that's a lot. She said, I can't believe you have that much energy for this and also grad school and what you're doing. How do you have so much energy? That's kind of amazing. And that was her reality checking with me in a genuinely awe-filled way. She was just like, I just don't know how you're fitting it all together. And it gave me this like, whoa, wait, how do I have, oh, wait, I have 2 days to write this huge paper. Like, what am I doing? Am I budgeting my energy for what I've committed to? And where is this going to go for me to believe in this? And so it was a very unshaming way to pull me out of a massive spiral that was mostly, in hindsight, a collision of even environmental factors. Like they had come in and sprayed our apartments for bed bugs because there were reports of this on a different floor. And so there was this chemical element that was happening to me too, but I wasn't putting all these things together, and I was really falling down this rabbit hole of, is the government real? And in hindsight, I can giggle about this, but in the moment, it felt very serious and very concerning. And I had the kindness of a sibling to not be like, don't be crazy, and instead just be like, huh, wow, how are you fitting this all together? So
yeah, that's big of we were touching on earlier in our chat when it was kind of, there was like a thing opened and then multiple staff members had come into a VC over time, so it kind of came up. But the idea of like having to like walk a person to their own conclusions rather than just telling them what they're thinking is crazy. Like you can't just say like, you know, something that they've, even if the reasoning wasn't sound, like they've reasoned themselves into that position. So you're not just gonna knock them out of it without letting them kind of, you know, walk down that road themselves and come to the conclusions that it doesn't make sense. I told him that looking after just the brief talk we've had here, that I think our message is decent, other than at the very end changing one use of, you know, we're saying, you know, if you want to check with a professional or with authorities whether your paranoia is valid, saying whether your concerns are valid.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
yeah.
That phrasing was used earlier in the message as well, so
yeah.
it seems very kind of accusatory just to call the
calling somebody paranoid.
Paranoias.
Yeah, it actually is the equivalent of telling somebody who's telling you something's on fire to calm down. You don't match that energy with a judgment. You match it with a curiosity and a redirect. And then, you know, the thing that people do is they start to feel like they're walking on eggshells because they're like, we all are, you know, making virtual eye contact with each other and going, we know this is out there. This is way too far beyond. And so because it feels like out of the realms of sanity, out of the realms of human understanding, therefore this person is unhinged and they can't cope and whatever. But the reality is like this could be a very temporary state, and the kindness that we practice in these moments, while giving reality checks on our capacity to follow or allow our community to be disordered by what this thing is. Even if they blow out of there and just be like, you are the worst, you are excluding, you are whatever, even if this becomes the powder keg for them, they still have a solid thing to reflect on of eventually when they do land, when they do find their center again, to go, was that really like people persecuting me? Or did I read that from the same lens that was making the other stuff real?
Yeah, and that's always the hope. I mean, I'm not sure, did I even bring up the individual that we had to report to the authorities? We did send a message because somebody had sent one of those kind of like, I'm not making any friends, and but they would be my friends if I did X terrible thing, I bet.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But we had a staff member who got very real with them, and you know, it still didn't end well, but it's one of those situations like you're talking about where hopefully, you know, with clearer eyes, they can look back and be like, you know, they did their best.
Yeah, and how do we live with ourselves if our worst fear comes true? You know, like, did we give this the integrity and the compassion and honor it as much as possible, while also knowing we have limits? You know, this is a volunteer leadership group.
We
all
discussed
of
it from that thought as well. Like, imagine if, you know, the worst case there did happen, and it's like, you know, oh, on the news, that's that guy. And if we had just kind of left it alone and done nothing, like, that would have been much worse than, you know, making an attempt to.
And often that is
in a better direction.
Yeah. Good.
You have to realize, though, that what leads people to do certain things is not just one single event.
Yeah.
It's usually a lot of things that lead up to.
And it could still feel incredibly guilt-inducing and horrifying to be involved with somebody who made that decision eventually that did harm or whatever. So that's all very real. But I just have to ask myself when these stressors come up of like, did we make this a little easier for the leader after us to stay compassionate and handle some gradient variety of what we're encountering right now. And as long as we made it a little better this time around, then it's like, okay, it all fell apart, but we grew the capacity to not feel that trauma response of bracing and going, oh, we're not equipped for this. Like, oh, we have a draft on this. We didn't get the draft out in time to address it, or we did and it wasn't good enough.
Realize that's where we're failing.
Yeah, the drafts.
We're basically just relying on having the people in place who can handle it. Like,
yeah,
I think if I didn't handle certain things, or if other individuals at certain times didn't jump in and contribute, that I don't know how certain things would have gone. Because
that's it, and that's where
there is no playbook. We're just kind of winging it as things come up.
And that's what I hope we're doing at BridgeMakers, which actually turns a lot of people off. Is they're like, wow, I'm already doing community building, community leading. I already found enough that worked for me to be attracted to this group. And now I'm supposed to like systematize and record and build templates for and like contribute to the grunt work of this infrastructure piece that I already have figured out what works for us and what for me. Yes. Yes, that is what we're asking for, because ultimately most VR social, this is such a terrible thing, but it's just true. Most social VR community leaders leave because they're burned out. They don't leave because they're like, okay, I have fully manifested myself as a community leader and I'm ready to move on into the physical reality and run for office. Like that is not the pathway. The pathway is, I'm ascending into the sky, into the physical realms, It is really this fracturing, heartbreak and soul breaking until I just can't do it anymore. And then my exit is usually messy and ick and like something I just never want to think about again. That is like 90% of the stories that I hear about how people exit. And so if that is the most likely outcome, how do we build it better while we can so that eventually the remaining drafts to start to grow is the gradient of how do we help people exit better and prepare for their exits and put routines into their communities so they can step back and see, maybe I was actually ready to leave 3 years ago or 3 months ago, and I didn't have anything in place to tell me it was time to take a break. And so
you just were like making me realize we got more going on than I just consider routine. Like we have a long-time user that actually just got banned as well for kind of a straw on the camel's back situation of like just always like my favorite way of characterizing them was always the little brother that's like, I'm not touching you. Like they're just always like pushing that. I think honestly a different event I've brought up in the past was like to do with them. But it was always like they were the reason we had to force like our XP opt out. Like you're no longer allowed to participate in the gamification because you make everything a debate about the rules.
Yeah.
And just like it was really the thing that ended up like even kind of being characterized as what the ban was about. I've had to explain to a few folks like really it wasn't that extreme. It was just that it was that, and they refused to back down. They got defensive and rules lawyering about it again, and it was like, yeah, they misgendered and used a slur, but it was like in the link of a GIF they used a obscure slur, and they were playful about untraditional pronouns with somebody. So both of those again are like not good, but any normal person would just be like, yeah, not a problem. The point being with them that we didn't really have that way of being like, maybe it's time for you to go, without it just being like, honestly, it wasn't it wasn't a big explosion of an exit, but it wasn't clean.
It wasn't graceful.
It wasn't nice.
And that's really what I hope we as long as we exist, I hope we keep practicing and bringing to leaders who are hungry for it in communities is how do we find grace? We are all of us are making stuff up out of pixels and sound waves. We are making connections up out of plastic and metal and electricity.
Make a pretty direct request of you then, that it'll work with, potential recording. You could, can you read something in a DM that's a short paragraph and tell me just based on our conversation? And to a degree, like, the person has heard me talking about BridgeMakers, so they are someone that could join. And,
sure.
That you could also say, like, because we like I said, we changed the wording there at the very end, so I'm going to send it to you in a DM, and you can have any commentary without getting too specific on recording,
Sure, yeah. I like how we're kind of strategically navigating that, so we're staying respectful of, and this is the thing, I was I was in a leadership meetup group this week, and this group of leaders is around, and I'm telling them about BridgeMakers, and I'm just like, and it's all streamed and recorded, and they're like, oh, and I was like, but the reality is we're all having to like deal with that as a possibility anyways. This is just very explicitly saying that. And we just have to still practice as if that's true, because it is, and still find vulnerability and growing.
I brought that up even at work in regards to like Teams groups, and people are like, oh, this one, there's no bosses in this. I'm like, this is a company chat. You should not be putting anything that you think could get you in trouble, let alone fired on it. Like, just always act like you're being recorded. And in that sense of always hold yourself to a standard that it shouldn't matter if you're being recorded. You're being mindful and respectful, and it's not that hard.
Yeah, so I'm just glancing over this here, and what I really appreciate about it is, like, first of all, I just want to honor you, Carl, and the group that you're with, in that, like, you all labor so constantly to, like, really genuinely address people's humanity and not cookie cutter this, and not just throw it into ChatGPT, which sometimes I do too quickly, and do something that is like genuine with all human words built together to say something honest. So thank you. And there's drafts happening here, right? So there's some good stuff about this draft.
I'll give credit there on the draft there was written by Dangleberry.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dangleberry.
Different people will jump in and write a message, but
that's
credit where it's due
to build it, right? So there's a piece around how we set up words so that it doesn't trigger reactions, right? So this is saying your concerning behavior versus there are some reports of behavior that is concerning me. And ideally it's me and not us, because when I say we or us, I did think about that. Yeah, so that takes all the oxygen out of the room, because it makes it this collective voice, but it's usually being sent by one person, and it feels like a coup. I mean, it's just very, very intense and shaming. And so saying, I've heard some reports that I feel concern around, and then here's the bulleted list without putting any stigma around it. Quote, blah, 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 quote, blah, 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 quote, blah, blah, blah. And so if you understand or agree that this is true, here is our request for change around this. Here is what we need you to know. I need you to know about our community culture. And then there's a very clear and simple request for change and invitation to have a dialogue about it if you have any questions or concerns. The idea is to try to make it as easy as possible for somebody to step forward into a corrective behavior without feeling like they're giving up their sense of justice. And so I'm not going to...
Do you think that maybe adding on a bit about, because I will be clear that most folks see this as sufficient in the chat, and this is like almost to the point of getting sent to them.
It's too far. Yeah, I gotcha.
But I do think that perhaps we could add a bit at the end that says, like, you know, we want to make sure, because I don't think we're going to get out of the collective voice, which I do regret, but I'm not sure how to
walk that back eventually. Yeah, it's going to take some time,
yeah.
but it's just it's an educational piece.
Yeah. So, but I do feel that having, you know, at the end of that message, that invitation to say, you know, we, you know, want to make it clear this is a, you know, informative discussion, and if you have any questions or concerns, like you said, please, you know,
let's talk.
You know, have the discussion with us here. Let's talk, you know. And I myself, because we do encourage us, you know,
have a direct contact
ourselves as a moderator and stuff.
Lovely.
And I've made it clear in our previous discussions that I've spoken with them. So like, after the message is sent, I might also send something simple like, you know, I just want you to know that we're, we know you're in a hard place, and we aren't saying, you know, that we think everything you've said to us is, you know.
Well, and that's another.
See, and I still haven't. I haven't thought that through yet.
I like what you're going there, right? So I'm going to tell somebody, hey, you're saying some insane shit that you might not even realize cumulatively you're saying. You might just think, oh, well, they've heard maybe this one thing.
To be clear, I think some of the stuff that others might at face value take as insane is fully true. I believe that they have traveled to an unfamiliar place and are in a difficult situation financially and such.
Yeah.
And when they talk about those things, I don't feel that sense of, you know, this is something concerning. I feel that this is something, you know, actually, I mean, you know, and it still falls into that trauma dump category of like potentially not something to jump into a VC and talk about.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that everything we've talked about is like, I don't believe you, you know?
Right. So what I was getting to there is, instead of it going to just like XYZ hard things, another way your team might consider addressing this is saying, here are some areas that I'm feeling concerned around, if possible. A group saying they're concerned, that's at the level of like, we may make you walk the plank and we're going to dump you in the ocean. That's the physiological response that sets. So if you're saying a feeling thing, don't say the group's feeling it. Just say, I feel concerned.
So yeah, I think I'm going to I'll tell the group, our group of mods, that just FYI, I plan to post a follow-up message after this in the first person saying, you know, I know you and I have discussed a bunch of things in the past, and I don't want you to feel that we're dismissing everything you've shared. It's just about, you know, setting boundaries in the community, and we want to make sure that you're being, you know, acknowledged.
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. And so what I would say also to that is, like, if you're going to say we are upset about this, then saying, and we appreciate this about you. So what is the list of the things that actually are healthy, healing, beautiful about this person? And so
right. We appreciate you coming to this community to, you know, find, you know, solace and refuge in whatever way you can.
Yeah, beautiful. And consent culture around trauma is really important, right? So trauma dumping is just because there's nobody able to receive it and not see it as a dump, right? Like, trauma dumping can be sacred if the container is set. It's called transformational processing. But if there's no container for it, then it feels like it's hurting everybody. So, yeah, tough stuff, but beautiful question. And thank you for working it. And this, again, I think you're saying you don't have a playbook, but I think you do. I think you just haven't gathered it, right? And, Mary, you were showing me something earlier today about like you have a templates channel, right? Like, I do think there can be a place that is not perfect and doesn't have the gold lettering, leafing, we think of guidebooks and we think of something so official that it scares us and we want to wilt away. But shout out to Lily for naming that draft the world's worst draft, right? Like, if you set it up as like, this is shitty and is not going to make sense to most people, but we're going to start to pour everything into this until somebody gets so annoyed with how chaotic it is that they're going to go through and tabulate and organize and put it into themes. And that person will come, but they definitely won't come or arrive or do anything if that doc doesn't get started. And you probably have so much more than you realize, which shout out to ChatGPT. Sometimes I will take an entire conflict that somebody shows me in a community chat and I'll just copy for like 3, 4, 5, 6 pages of chat. And then I throw it in ChatGPT and one that I've grown and organized around conflict resiliency. And I'm like, give me the summary of the conflict. Give me the different misunderstandings that might be happening here. And also give me like some strengths and growth edges for this group. And then I have it just in case I run into that leader and they sit there and are like, oh my God, this whole thing blew up. And that way, what that does for me is it helps me not have to retain the names of the people or the actual nitty gritty drama being thrown around. And it just lets me have that kind of, what are the deeper patterns happening here? And now I'm not attaching any shade to any one person. I'm just sitting with the overall patterns.
I do have some critique for the numerous documents that you post in BridgeMakers.
I believe you do. Yes. What is your critique?
For someone like me who doesn't like to read too much, I really, which might be ironic considering what you just said, I would really like to see some stories leading the points that you make.
Yeah. Like the story
so
I just
that
told.
I grasp, like to provide the context for why what you're saying matters. I feel like that would help for things like there's stuff that it's not so much that I don't care about it, that I don't grasp how important it is for someone in a position that I'm not in. And so to put me in that position, I need to read a story from that position.
Right. And what's interesting in that feedback, so thank you, is that a lot of times those pieces are written as a modified follow-up for a leader who has brought me something, and they're not going to be able to comprehend all the pieces that I can give them around it, but I'm using it as a prompt to get those pieces put in writing. But to tell the story that prompted it, it's way too fresh and would be way too easy for that group or whatever to connect what prompted it. And so I'm realizing that there's this part of me that's distancing from the story because I don't want to get messy that way, but it doesn't mean I can't come up with a different story, or it doesn't.
And
go ahead.
I can see that being challenging because if you know the story and it's a real story, it's very difficult to come up with a new one that makes the same point.
And the way that I see a lot of what I'm putting out, because there's not a lot of likes or feedback on most of what I'm putting out, is that this is going to cycle back around, and there's going to be a new leader. There's going to be a new moment where it's like, oh, what a mess. And so that is when now, because of your feedback, I'm thinking, now I could go tell the old story. I could just edit this article or this piece, tell the old story when it cycles back, and it's far enough away, it's probably not going to link at all. And I have enough distance from it that I actually may have even more information that helps there be a like, here's the problem. Here are some steps. Here's what ended up happening if any of these steps were used or they weren't. And here's what ended up. So it can sandwich it better with the hindsight. So yeah, the context really matters. And I think I would also love to have some creative partners that could sit there and say, well, what story do you think happened that brought this up? And then that kind of gets some juices going around, like, it's all allegories. We all recognize elements in it, but it is hard to digest. It's like giving somebody a meat patty, but there's no sandwich or pickle next to it. Like what's the context that helps me like register and file this away? And I have to be just so careful because it's such a smoke and mirror space, virtual reality. A lot of the people that are bringing me these problems, I've never seen their faces in physical reality. I don't know who they are. And I don't know about the people involved, and so I don't know the effect of the recommendations and opinions I'm giving and how it's going to roll out. And so mostly I stay away from those pieces. And it feels weird kind of most of the time to make stuff up, because that is also kind of, if I de-identify it too much, it's not going to feel like it matters or it's real. And I have run these things through ChatGPT before and been like, make up a story that fits this. But most of the time, I don't find those stories full of heart. They don't feel real to me. They feel like a commercial or something. So I'm like, you can see even just like 30 minutes ago, some criticism about ChatGPT on our Discord, right? But yeah. And so
check it out.
There, you're like, ooh, some juice, right? But there is, there are standards of gradients of harm reduction in how ChatGPT is being utilized, so that it's hopefully not doing as much harm as it could, and it's also not making shit up, while also being respectful to not be exposing people in very vulnerable and uncomfortable places who are seeking help with a stranger or with a group they haven't built relationship with, but still being able to share some of the wisdom that they've prompted. So like one of the pieces I posted yesterday was a mountain of problems worksheet. And that is from a few different community leaders who have come and not even dumped their problems, but have just said, I have nowhere to put my problems. I can't even sort through it. I can't even breathe when I'm thinking about these. And realizing, yeah, I could schedule a one-on-one with them, but I'm also not their therapist. And they're not asking for that. They're just venting that they don't have a way through this and their life is falling apart. So I'm going to give a worksheet and just say, hey, you might check this out. Like, this isn't just for you, but this is a pattern. This is how I prevent burnout for myself, is trying to grow these just little threads, little templates off of the problems that are coming up, so that even when somebody, the criticism today, like, oh, it's obviously ChatGPT. And I was like, great, we're recruiting for writers and artists.
I'm kind of questioning because they said it's the post and appreciation. Yeah. Is any of that AI generated?
Well, so what they don't understand...
I didn't notice.
Right. What they don't understand is there can be common phrasing that is in ChatGPT, and we do run a lot of what we write through ChatGPT for grammar checks and to make sure the sentence flows and it has a speech-like quality to it, right? But before that, we brainstorm, we go through photos and videos and meeting notes and whatever.
It's an Ouroboros. It's the what is ChatGPT is simulating, what it's been fueled by is that input.
Yeah, exactly.
So now that it's gotten to the point where I myself am guilty of this while also acknowledging, like, it's that, dialectic thinking. When I see certain stuff, I'm just like, that looks AI. Like, it's just a gut feeling of, and it's not even just images. I'm talking about the way, like, text is formatted or sentences, and it's even before that, I would have just said that looks like corporate PR bullshit.
Exactly.
And that is the model it's built on. So when you, especially if you're already in that world and now you're giving it inputs that you've built yourself, but are along the lines of like what it's already kind of recognizable and easy to elaborate on, it is a powerful tool, and it's kind of something that weirdly I connected to even like, the we'll just broadly call it the large political pendulum swing of wanting that realness, someone I could just have a beer with. Like, that is a quality that like I have unintentionally. Like, I can turn on that kind of, corporate speak. Like, that is something that I'm called upon in Ancients Chat occasionally to like just
sound official,
step back and give them the manager voice, and but overall, like, I just kind of am a chill dude, and it has helped me excel to a degree where people, don't mind giving me power and authority over them because they're not worried I'm going to abuse it mostly. But it kind of, we've seen it swings both ways, where it's just like can be insincere and it's definitely dangerous in its own right. But on the other end is that like anti-establishment, anti-corporate, like, folks just kind of have a distaste for that, I think. So
of course
there's maybe a need to have an effort to like wrap it in that sort of, laissez-faire attitude of like, and then this is where it starts brainstorming ideas on the solutions, and I could start drawing blanks, so I don't know.
It's okay.
But there is maybe a need to take some seriousness out of it, which I'll admit I kind of lost the thread of how Mary had steered the conversation, and I was typing up my response to throw in mod chat before the ball snowball got out of my hands.
Yeah, no worries.
And if you're curious, I did send you a copy of that message as well that I sent, like, my subsequent message that I sent to mod chat of saying this is what I plan on doing and my thoughts on where we got with the drafted message.
Yeah.
Not very long.
I appreciate your message, Carl. Would be the bridge that keeps this person from leaving and being even more traumatized in their life. And it's sad to me that they can't go together. And if that's how it goes, that's how it goes.
Well, I started to change my message in the beginning and say maybe I can be the one to deliver the initial message as well. Like, to send the drafted message myself and then send, because, that is also part of how we approach when we do send messages, like whose voice is going to be the most constructive here. Certain people get tapped for certain types of situations,
So what a engaging kind of living, we're not just talking high level, we're actually like problem solving active things happening in our community systems right now. But I guess what I just want to appreciate is if it isn't ChatGPT, there's too many words. If it's not there's too many words, it sounds too formal. If it's like there's always going to be a piece where it's like that didn't go in smoothly and feel like, wow, what a good meal you served me. Can I have seconds? And it's the modeling at least one more time, because if I get too many of these tonight, you might see a different reaction coming off me because I'm pretty wiped from this week. But one more time is kind of the motto that I bring of like, one more time, how do I practice kindness here? And how do I practice gratitude? There's a little bit of a new spin on the feedback today in our server, which is that for somebody who doesn't know the person who contributed and who doesn't know us, they think it's all made up and fake. They don't know that this post was actually approved by the person we were appreciating before we posted it. And that we're adding that additional layer into our shout outs going forward, just as a way to keep bridging and not just, it's like appreciation dumping on something. Like, how do we stay collaborative? And so they don't know those things, but thank goodness those things were in place. So I could read this today and be like, ouch, but also way to be courage. I don't even know who this is. And they're like, in our discussion, like saying this in front of it, there's a lot of courage in that. And do I want to leave this to just sit in the middle and burn for the weekend or whatever? No. So I'm going to see if we can just do a little chiropractic flip and adjustment and do some recruiting and see what happens. And
chiropractic.
Every moment is an opportunity.
I like that framework
to reorient and recruit.
I forget the meme thing. Like every it's just like
challenge.
You said, basically. Like every challenge is an opportunity, but like in a very over the top, energetic sort of way.
Yeah, but, I mean the way salespeople say is like any energy is energy to turn into a sales.
Oh, we're in recruitment mode.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
Go.
That's the reframe, right?
We need ambassadors. We need.
That's right.
I mean.
And ultimately,
I can't help it. I almost called myself out earlier when we were in that world and was like, oh, I shouldn't be pitching BridgeMakers. I'm just some guy here right now.
It was lovely. It was a heartfelt piece. Yeah, no worries. And I sent that person a friend request. They friended me back, and also this is their home world, and so it's a lot for us to go into their space and be like, come to our space. So that was just an opening bridge. We gave them the opportunity, and they can find it in my groups.
Yeah, and once they started talking about their pipeline, I was like, oh, that sounds useful.
I know.
You should get on BridgeMakers.
No, totally. We need you.
I saw that opportunity.
Yeah. But in the meantime, so many brilliant. I'm glad we went on our field trip. I think there was a lot of beautiful moments that happened in the chaos of that time. And thank you both for your journey with me tonight. It was started out with bunnies and ended with ChatGPT. What a journey.
I don't like bunnies, by the way.
Really? That feels like...
I don't find them cute.
What do you think about them? What are they instead of cute?
Okay, so you know the little black eyes that they have?
Beady little eyes.
Those freak me out.
Yeah. Feel strategic
I
or something.
have some pretty negative associations as well, honestly. Two main ones.
Poor bunnies. We're gonna have to go back and apologize to them. Okay, let's scooch together for a little photo.
I did nothing to hurt them.
Did not. You just danced with them and left happily.
I'll tell you my negative bunny associations while we pose.
Okay.
I mean, the first one's easy. We know. Shit, of mice
What's our
and
word
men,
for the
right?
day? Whale tail.
A rabbit's gone wild.
Rabbit's gone wild. Woo! That's great. Love it.
Got rid of mice and men.
Nope.
No. I mean, I know the story, but I haven't read Reddit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say goodbye to our
so the
singular
tragic
audience. Bye,
bye.
singular audience.